What's up, guys? Welcome back. So today's video is the first one we've done in quite a while. I have been crazy busy working on the new house, and I swear I'm going to start a different channel with home improvement videos. But anyway, here we are. What we're going to be doing today is installing the Rago Fabrication, and this is how it comes shipped to you. I just took it out of the shipping box. That's it. But this is how it's packaged. It is their dash plate mount. I've never used any of Rago Fabrication products. I hear nothing but good things about them. I'll explain why we're going to make the switch to this type of mount as we're going through the install video. Seems very straightforward and easy to do. So I'm going to show you how to get it done, and then I'll give you a little bit of a review and show you how I'm going to set this up. So without further ado, let's get this 2020 Tundra Platinum ripped apart, and we'll get this thing installed. Step one is removing the shift knob. Just simply unscrews. Next step is removing this entire center console piece like that's around the shift knob. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this part. I'm going to show you how to do it if you want to know, and you know, it's the recommended way of doing it, but you don't really have to do this step. You can remove, the next step is going to be remove this panel down here. You can actually do that without removing this. This just, taking this out of the way just makes it a little easier. In order to remove this whole big section, I've already, I had some wiring harnesses underneath here because, as you can see, hopefully in the camera or in the video, I've relocated my rear window switch, and I have a bunch of custom switches in here. Just to save some time on the video, all you're going to do is open up your middle console here, and there's a crease right in here. You just take your plastic pry tool, get it in that crease, and then lift it up, and it'll pop up like this. And again, I've already done it just to save a little time. It can be a little stubborn the first couple times you do it. And speaking of that, I've had this dash taken apart, I don't even know how many times, with all the customizing I do. If you guys want to see how to do any disassembly on this entire dash, I have a video on the channel. I'll put a link up above. It's one of my biggest videos. I don't even know how many views it's up to at this point, but I show you how to remove and disassemble literally everything you see on the front of the dash. You know, if you want to do any kind of customizing or running wiring or anything you want to do. But back to this project. So let's get this up and out of the way. Once you pop it loose from the middle console here, it'll just lift up like this. You kind of just shimmy it out. And then I still have some wiring harnesses attached in the front. So you'll be able to just pick this up and get it out of the way. I'm going to leave mine sitting right there just because I do have some wiring harnesses for those switches. All right, so I'm just going to set that off to the side. Next step is to remove the lower panel down here where your USB ports are. I'm going to unplug my wireless Apple CarPlay module just to get that out of the way. In order to do this, plastic pry tools, there's a crease between this panel and your climate control panel. Just get your plastic pry tool in that crease and just kind of work your way across, loosening it up. It's only held in by clips. So just go all the way across and kind of pop it down and loosen it like that. And again, you could do this step without removing this bigger panel. It's just easier if you get this out of the way. Once you have it started, just kind of pull down and it'll pop out of the way like that. Now, you do obviously have all the wiring harnesses back there, you know, for your USB ports and things like that. So just be careful. You can actually remove that completely and just unplug the harnesses. Don't really have to, because the next step, we're just going to get our fingers behind the climate control piece here, and this piece just pops out. All right, so we can pop it out, remove the wiring harness from the back. That's just a simple clip. Set this piece aside. Next step, remove the radio. There's 4 10mm bolts down here underneath the radio. 2 are up here in the front, you can't miss them, but then there's 2 that are one on each side, one back here and one back here. So 4 total, 2 in the front, 1 and 1. The 2 on the sides, the far sides, are pretty, they're back there, so you need an extension for your ratchet. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the front 2 first. Doesn't matter what order you do them in. Now, to remove the 2 that are set back, the ones on each far side, I've seen people do all sorts of crazy things to try to not drop these things. Guys, I've had this dash apart countless times. I've had the radio removed I don't even know how many times for different reasons. I've never had an issue dropping them. You're going to need the extension, as I mentioned, and I'm not sure if I mentioned they're 10mm bolts. But all you do is just take your extension, get back up in there, and loosen them up. And then just very carefully, I think it's pretty loose right there. just as you're removing it, just be very careful. That's all you got to do. Again, I mean, there's tricks that you can, you know, I've seen people use a piece of tissue in there or like whatever to try to grip that bolt. Like I said, I've never had a problem. I've never dropped one. So just be careful. You just don't want to drop it down in the middle there because it could be a pain. Take it out. So let's go ahead and get this last one, the fourth one, out of there. And once I get it started, I'll remove the ratchet itself and then just twist it by hand just to get a better feel. Once those 4 bolts are removed, just get your hands up here behind the radio and you're gonna pop it loose. First time you do it, it might be a little stubborn, but you're simply just gonna give it a nice clean pop like that and it'll pop loose. Now, usually when I'm working like this, I'll put a towel up on the dash and just kind of flip it up over it and rest it there. You just don't want to scratch this. So I have a nice little spot to rest it right here because I'm leaving this panel here. So I'm just going to kind of set it down right there carefully, not to scratch it. So just make sure you have, I mean, you can unplug. There's a whole bunch of wire harnesses back here. I don't recommend unplugging all of them. Just that's too much of a nightmare. So just make sure you have, you know, something to set it down right there, you know, so you're not stressing the wires and you don't scratch the face of the stereo. All right, let's get this thing installed. So basically you only get 3 things in the package. You get your bag of hardware, your underplate or base plate, whatever you want to call it, and then of course your top plate or your main plate. And this is the newest version, the updated version that has the dual USB port in it with the cover. All right, so there's a little bit of wiring involved, which I'll show you what I'm going to do there. All right, so first thing is you're going to want to take the base plate, and there's 2 tabs on the back here, one here and one here, that line up with the 2 slots on top of here, the closest towards the windshield. And I had an aftermarket piece right here, but it's just a cover. You can just lift that up out of the way to expose these 3 slots that you see up here. All right, so just line those 2 slots up in the back. And there is a little bit of play front to back, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to make sure I have this exactly where I want it. Because again, as you can see, this does slide. So before we go drilling any holes, I'll show you what we're going to do next. All right, so what I did was temporarily attach my main plate to my base plate, just using the 2 screws that are provided. You can't mix them up. There's only 2 of them in a bag. All right, and the reason I'm doing that is the 2 tabs that I showed you that are on the back of the underplate goes in those 2 slots. But as you're going to see, there's a little bit of wiggle room front to back. So you can slide it all the way back or slide it all the way forward. And it's not much movement, but if you're as anal as I am about your truck and how things are looking and sitting, I highly recommend doing this before you go drilling any holes. And I actually think I like the way it looks with the tabs pushed all the way back. So now I know I can remove this top plate, and I'll show you what we have to do next. But I think I like it best with it pushed all the way towards the, well, actually I should say all the way forward towards the windshield. But do the step if you're as anal as I am, and make sure you like how it's sitting, because there is a little bit of play front to back. All right, so once you decide where you want it, as I showed you and mentioned, I want mine kind of pushed all the way towards the back. Let me just get my head over here real quick and make sure everything looks centered and lined up. All right, and I have it pushed all the way towards the windshield. So I'm just going to take my Sharpie, make sure it's something that you can see. So I have like a silverish Sharpie here, and we're going to mark our locations, which is 4 of them, that we need to drill our holes. Then we can go ahead and remove this piece. And as far as drilling the holes, take out the bolts. There's 4 of these bolts. Line them up just to make sure you don't want a hole that's either too big or too small. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch drill bit. Just double check that with your bolts just in case they change the hardware for whatever reason. But for me, the 1/4 inch drill bit is going to be the perfect size to make these holes. All right, now that we have our holes drilled, we're going to take our base plate here, or bottom plate, whatever you want to call it. Get those tabs in, and then we're going to take one of the 4 provided bolts to hold this in place. Take a washer, pop the washer on there, and I'm just going to get one started to hold it down, and then we'll get the other 4 in place. Now, the head of these bolts is a 5/13 30 seconds Allen key or socket, whatever you want to call it. And then the nut, it's a nylon locking nut that's going to go underneath. That's a size 11. So I have my size 11 on one ratchet, my 5/32 Allen wrench on, or Allen head on the other. So we're going to take another washer and we're going to go up underneath and just get that washer and nylon locking nut started. And then what we're gonna do is we'll take our size 11, get it up underneath there to hold that in place. Take our 5/32 and up top here and start tightening down. And I'm not gonna tighten all the way until we get all four started, just to make sure everything is lining up. And then we'll go back and tighten them all down. I'm just gonna snug it up just a little, just to hold it there. And then we'll go back and do the same thing for the other three holes, and I'll finish it up by tightening them down. All right, so now that we have all four bolts tightened down, that thing is rock solid. Can't wait to get this install done. Before we attach the top plate, we do have to drill one more hole for the wiring, because again, this newer version that we're installing has that dual USB port. So there's a number of ways you can do this, and looking at it, what I think I'm gonna do is, I think I'm gonna drill a hole straight down through the middle of the mount and through the dash. Now you can come back and drill a hole behind it here, or even in this corner here or here, whatever you wanna do. I don't know if I wanna do it in the front here, because there is a slight gap when you put this top plate on. I hate seeing wiring. I always, if you guys follow the channel, you know that my wiring installs, I cannot stand seeing any wiring. I want it to look as neat and professional as possible. So if I do a hole right down through the middle of the base plate, it won't affect the integrity of the base plate. I'm going to do it right in the middle of these two bolts, so nothing will be affected there. And that way the wiring will just feed straight down through there. And then I'll show you how we're going to route it down into our fuse box. So, all right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole. A 1/4 inch will be big enough to get that wiring down through there with the two butt connectors on there. So that's what we're going to do. Little tip, if you're going to do this the way I'm showing it to you and the way I'm doing it, I highly recommend drilling that hole in this base plate before you attach it to the truck. That thing is rock solid, and it would have just been so much easier if I drilled that hole, but I didn't think that far ahead into the install, and I wasn't sure where I was going to put that hole. But anyway, do that before you attach it to the truck if you're going to drill the hole in this base plate. So all I've done off camera is attached a long piece of 18 gauge wiring using the same connectors I use in all my videos, guys. I didn't show this on camera just because it's very simple. I just use those weatherproof butt connectors. I use weatherproof butt connectors for everything. Whether this is obviously never going to see rain or anything underneath the dash, but it's just what I use. It's what I have. Highly recommend them in any kind of situation. But that's all I've done. You only get these short pigtails coming off of the dual USB. I'd say, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 inches. So I attached the long piece of 18 gauge wiring. This is 20 gauge coming off of the dual USB. I used 18 to extend it down, and I'll show you where we're going to connect it to. So all I did was feed it down through the hole that I just drilled. It popped out underneath here. You can see it here. And then I'll put a picture on your screen and show you where I actually fed it down through the dash. And where it's going to pop out is, it pops out behind the steering column down by the brake pedal and the gas pedal, and we're going to shoot it over, zip tie it up nice and neat, and connect into the fuse box that's underneath the console here. All right, so once we do that, again, I'm just going to get this wiring ran the rest of the way down through here and attach it with the 2 screws, and attach it, the top plate to the base plate with those 2 screws, and then again we'll finish up the wiring, and we'll get the ram mounts mounted, and we'll wrap the video up. All right, guys, before we wrap up the install with the wiring, this thing is on there rock solid. Can't wait to put it to the test. I'm just going to go ahead and put the truck back together, the middle section here and everything, just to clean it up before I go into the wiring and show you the fuse box. So in order to do that, you're just going to go ahead and reverse your steps. I'm not going to show it on camera just to save time. Reverse your steps. It's that simple. Everything goes right back in where it should. And just be careful. Watch the wiring harnesses. Other than that, very straightforward and simple. All right, here we are next day. It started to rain on me yesterday, so let me show you the wiring, what we're going to do here. So as you can see, this is our wiring obviously hanging down, and it comes, when you feed it in through the console behind the radio like I showed you, it's gonna pop out up in that corner there. So all we're gonna do is, you can see I already have other wiring ran for a bunch of different projects I've done on the truck. So we're just gonna zip tie it up there nice and neat, and I'll show you where we're gonna tap into. So we're gonna bring it over here, and all I did was I took the negative, the black, and put a ring terminal on it, because we're gonna take the ground, or the black, to this screw right here. It's a good grounding point for me. It's nice and easy to get to, so that's where we're gonna run the black wire to. The positive, all I'm doing is I attached it to an add-a-fuse. So if you're not familiar with an add-a-fuse, basically it allows you to tap into an existing fuse without doing any damage or harm to the fuse that's already there, but it just basically gives you another circuit. So you can see there's 2 fuses in there now, and I'll show you where we're gonna pop this into. But the fuse that's right here on the right side that's coming down into the wire, that's gonna be the fuse for the outlet, or for the new USB. The other fuse is going to be the stock fuse, which will act as it always did. All right, so that's what an add-a-fuse allows you to do. And if you're going to do it this way, make sure you get the right fuses. Obviously, there's 3 different types of fuses. For our Tundras, you need these. Okay, they're the short, fat ones. There's 2 other types of fuses, of course, the standard, and then the other mini fuse that has like the longer legs on it. You need the short, fat ones. All right, I think they're called low profile blade fuses. All right, so anyway, let me show you where we're gonna tap the positive into. So all we're gonna do is take this add-a-fuse, and we're gonna put it up into our fuse panel, which is up in here. I'll take a couple pictures and put it on your screen as well. But all we're gonna do is, where we removed the 5 amp factory fuse, we're just gonna pop this end back into that slot, and again, that's going to give you 2 different fuses coming from that slot. Okay, so again, just take this end, put it in the fuse box where you remove the 5 amp factory, and again, I'll put a picture on your screen showing you what fuse we're using, and it's as simple as that. All right, so this is going to be hard to do with one hand, so I'm just going to pop this up in there, and I'll show you when we're all done. I don't think I mentioned, but in order to access that grounding screw and a little bit easier access to the fuse panel, which is up underneath there, you can just remove these 2 panels. They simply just pop out, very easy to do. All right, so let me give you a look here. We're all buttoned up. You can see the grounding screw right here coming up, hooked into that. And then let me see if I can get you a look if you're unfamiliar with... Okay, and don't mind, I have a couple add-a-fuses up here for different projects, but this one right here that my middle finger is touching, that's the one that we popped out. And I'll take a picture of the, actually, instead of taking a picture, let me just show you. When you pop your fuse panel cover off, which looks like this, tells you what all the fuses are, it's the one on the bottom left. The very bottom left. And the reason I tapped into that one is I want that dual charging port on whenever the truck is on. Now, I know some people are going to ask, why not hook it to something where it's always on? And I will show you. Let me just get up in the truck real quick. Don't mind these screws. That's what's going to hold my ram mounts in there. But when this is powered up, there's a blue LED ring around the outside of this. So if let's say I ran this direct to a battery or a fuse that's always on or anything like that, that blue LED ring would be on 24/7. There'd be no way to turn it off without hooking it into a switch, which that's just not something I want to do for this project. So, but that's why we tapped into one of the ignition fuses, that particular one that I just showed you. So anytime I have the truck on, that will have power and we'll be able to charge our devices. Okay, so before I show you my ram mounts and give you my, overall opinion on this thing, I did want to show you one thing that I came back and added. I had the mount on for a couple days, and I noticed, especially when using my iPad, there was a little bit of wobble and I shouldn't say wobble because it wasn't that severe, but there was a little bit of movement to the plate. So I came back and I added these big fender washers. Instead of using the little washers that they send you, you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. I believe they were 1.5 inches outside diameter. I'll double check that for you, and I'll put the size on the screen. But that gives it, just by going back and adding those 4 washers, the fender washers, man, it makes a world of difference. I've been using it for a couple days now, so I wanted to take the radio back off, show you guys exactly what I did. I would highly recommend adding fender washers like this, the bigger, fatter ones. Rago Fabrication, if you're watching, I highly recommend sending those with the kit. This is an awesome mount, but this makes the world of difference just by adding these bigger washers to the underside of it. You don't necessarily need a backing plate or anything like that. It's not that severe. Just these fender washers made the world of difference. All right, so it's been, God, a little over a month since I finally did this install and added those fender washers that I showed you. As you can see, I have my iPhone 12 Pro Max and my iPad Pro 12.9 inch, both mounted on the Rago Fabrication mount. This thing, since I added those fender washers, guys, I highly recommend, if you're gonna install this thing, add them washers. You're not gonna put much more weight than this on this mount. I mean, I have the 12.9 inch iPad up there, 12 Pro Max on there, and hopefully you guys can see in the video, I mean, it's rock solid. They barely move, and I'm on back roads down here. You know, we live in the country. These roads aren't all that great. You know, the stretch we're on right now isn't all that bad, but they're pretty bumpy. Just wanted to give you a look, just so you know, for the phone mount. I'll take a picture and show you guys the RAM mounts. Obviously, I know you can't see them right now because they're behind the phone and the iPad. But for the phone, I went with the RAM size B. That's the 1-inch ball, and then obviously the corresponding arm, which that's the standard length arm. And then for the tablet, because it's obviously bigger and heavier, I went with the size C ball, which is the 1.5-inch ball, and then obviously again the corresponding arm. Both arms are the standard length arm, so the phone, the B size and C size, are both the standard length arm. All right, just wanted to give you a quick look, you know, while I'm driving with both of them mounted on there. Again, hopefully you can see in the video, rock solid. Since I added those fender washers, you know, I couldn't be happier. The dual USB mount, or I'm sorry, the dual USB charger back there, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I hate seeing cords and wiring and all that stuff. You know, so I don't have a charger in there right now, but if I need to charge one of them, my phone or the iPad, that thing it's much better than the console charger that I've added. I gotta be honest, I don't even really use this middle console charger anymore. If I do, I use it for my AirPods. I'll put the case on there and, you know, charge my AirPods up, but the dual USB charger that comes with this Rago Fabrication mount, awesome charger. If my phone's at 100 and I plug it in, it'll keep it at 100. As you can see, I'm always using Apple CarPlay. I have the wireless Apple CarPlay that we installed here on the truck. I usually have Pandora going for work. I always have Maps going, and it'll keep my phone at 100. If my phone's dying, I'll plug it in and it'll charge it relatively quickly, all the way up to 100 and keep it there. So couldn't be happier. A good dual USB charger in the back there. I love the mounting configurations, how it's very adjustable. You have holes in the front. Right now I obviously have the phone mounted in the middle, and same thing with the iPad. Again, I know you can't see it, but I have them mounted in the middle locations, but then there's also holes back in the rear as well. I've also had my GoPro mounted to this for videos that are going to be coming out on the channel, and again, I couldn't be happier. It's rock solid. No matter what kind of road I'm on, no matter what kind of weight I have on it, it's rock solid since I added those fender washers. Hopefully you guys, you know, like the video. If you have any questions on the mount or the RAM things that I'm using, or anything that you saw in the video, or anything else for that matter, leave them down below. We'll get them addressed for you. We'll catch you on the next video. Take care.